speaker, Dr. Syed Hussain Shaheed, who is the chairman department of the International Relations University of Peshawar and is a Fulbright teaching at the Fulbright Commission Bulgaria for the past 5 years, and teaching international relations and conflict resolution at the University of Peshawar. Dr. Hussain Shaheed Soherwordi Saab, can you hear us?
Yes, Janab. आवाज आ रही है मेरी आपको?
जी बिल्कुल.
Okay, here we go. So is it over to me?
Yes, it is over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much once again, as I mentioned in my comment, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share my notes and my comments. Let me say that in the beginning that for the last 6 months, I focused all my research on Afghanistan because the way situation was changing so frequently and so quickly, it alarmed me. It alarmed me that this thing is not the way this Dr. Ashraf Ghani had shown us the picture of as far as Afghanistan's internal and external security is concerned. I am belonging to that generation which in 1980s had witnessed different people roaming around in Peshawar. I was the one who had met with Hikmat Yar, Ustad Rabbani, Mujaddadi, all these Mujahideen. They used to live around our houses during 1980s. And then we were also the victim of those, at that very time, it used to be time bomb blasts. I remember once I was coming back from my school and there was a bomb blast, and then our school, they gave us a leave earlier than the time. And when I was leaving and I was forced to get into the bus, I saw one limb of a child lying on the electric wires. So from that moment till Taliban's takeover, and then 9/11 and Americans takeover of Kabul, and today I witnessed fall of Kabul at the hands of Taliban. That was really something something that recalls me different things that had taken place in the past 30-40 years. Let me say this thing that there are certain mistakes that Dr. Ashraf Ghani committed in the past few years. And I believe that all those mistakes are the lessons for the forthcoming government, that is the Taliban's government. Dr. Ashraf Ghani had committed few very grave mistakes. You can change your friends, but you cannot change your neighbors. And Dr. Ghani was not at all at conducive terms with its neighboring countries. Dr. Saab not only had very bad relations with the neighboring countries, Central Asian republics, Iran, China, Pakistan, which was sharing 2,340 kilometers of long border with Afghanistan, 2,340 kilometers long border. But even over and above, another mistake was committed by Dr. Saab, and that was he developed very friendly ties with extraterritorial countries, which were not in association with Afghanistan, contiguous to Afghanistan, and that is United States and India. So one thing that Dr. Saab, in Pashto, there is a dictum that he was already standing on a wet soap, which means it was very slippery. Over and above, he was cultivating friendly relations with all the countries that were not having good ties with those countries. Like for China, United States was not that acceptable, and for Pakistan, India was not acceptable. So mistakes by Dr. Ashraf Ghani and lessons in those mistakes for the forthcoming regime, for the forthcoming government. Then we see that countries are developed with certain indicators. Countries are developed with the satisfaction of the people. More and more focus, not only of Dr. Saab Ashraf Ghani's government, not only of Hamid Karzai's 2 terms, but also entire American focus on Afghanistan was very security oriented. They never looked at economic development of the country. They never looked at what people wanted. I mean, they had provided jobs to the people in Afghanistan, and those jobs were directly or indirectly associated with Americans working in Afghanistan, in different parts of Afghanistan or in Kabul. I mean, there were cooks, there were interpreters, there were service providers, all of them were working for Americans. So this means that if Americans will leave, those jobs will be over. So imagine that at the moment, there are 18,000 interpreters who have applied for naturalization of United States because they say that we cannot live under Taliban's regime. So security was given priority over economic development of the country. So no wonder that if Afghanistan in Kabul, we see changes, we see development, we see around of Kabul, no such a drastic development that had taken place in the last 20 years. And that is the reason that we see that for people of Afghanistan, that was simply a change of regime. They couldn't realize that there is going to be a drastic change from one to another. They thought that this is something very minor, and they will proceed with that. China was neglected in the meanwhile. Central Asian republics, the way Dr. Ashraf Ghani had relations with them, you can judge from here that his first destination when he left his country was Tajikistan, and Tajikistan never allowed him to stay there. And then he had to leave for Oman, and then finally UAE was the country that provided him with a refuge, and he had to seek. Otherwise, I think that was a great time. He must have had friendly relations with the neighboring countries, and they would have provided him refuge rather than vice versa. So when I say that lessons for the Taliban, I believe Ambassador Basit has already spoken. Taliban have to learn from their past, and they have learned from their past. Well, if people from international relations and diplomatic studies are here, they would understand that there is one realism and the other is neorealism. There is one liberalism and the other is neoliberalism. So is the case with the Taliban. 1996, 2001, they were Taliban. Today, Taliban are neo-Taliban. They are same, but with change in disposition, with change in nature, with change in lexicon, we see the way they are proceeding further. We also say that Taliban have learned a very old, one very important dictum of international relations. Foreign policy is the reflection of domestic policy. Previously, when they came into the government, they were not at all allowing anyone to interfere in the internal affairs of Afghanistan. They couldn't realize that this is not the gladiators' time. This is the time when every country's internal policy is criticized, condemned, and interfered by other countries. See, Floyd George, he was killed by Americans, and every country, even Nepal, Pakistan, all were condemning America for its internal, that particular matter. So we say that today it is not the era of gladiator. It's not the era of the First and the Second World War time. It's the time of 21st century when internal policies, they are reflected in foreign policy. Finally, they have accepted that, and we see the way their spokespersons are giving statements about how the country will be run in future. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been exactly 11th day that Taliban have already entered in Kabul, and they have yet to form the government. People are now skeptical about why it is so delayed. Yet we have answers. Whenever in such circumstances delay takes place, it is not because they are consulting, although they are saying that they are in consultation with the numerous stakeholders. It is because some disagreement is taking place amongst them. So Taliban are right now divided into two groups. One group is saying softer attitude towards women, women's role in the polity of nation. How will we have our foreign policy? What will we do with those countries that directly were against us and they fought against us? And how to deal with all these people who are right now around us? And they want strict laws. The second group is sublime, docile. They say we need to be very careful about what is happening in the entire world. Afghanistan's politics is prone to the international relations. So therefore, we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful regarding women's role in the society. We need to be very careful regarding the system that we are asking for. It would be Sharia, but it would not be that Sharia that we are asking. So ladies and gentlemen, these two groups, let me name them. One is Kandhari group. That is the people from Kandhar. They are very strict. They want strict Sharia. They want strict laws in the country. They do not want to see any role of Hamid Karzai or Dr. Abdullah. Whereas the soft, sublime, docile group is called Haqqani group. They say we have to live with the international community. We have to show them our softer attitude. Otherwise, we will not be recognized by the world community. If we are not recognized by the world community, our fate will be the same that took place with us in 1996-2001 era. So these are the two groups, in fact, which are at the loggerhead, and there is a disagreement between the two, and that is the reason that the process is getting so delayed. Now, there is another third very important factor. And that the third thing that I'm going to say is very big statement I'm going to make at the end. And that third factor is, if two parties divided into two groups, where is the top man? Mullah Haibatullah Akhund, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Amir of Taliban in Afghanistan. He must have by now given some pronouncements. He must have given some statement by now. Ladies and gentlemen, for your education and information, in the last 2 years, Mullah Haibatullah Akhund has not given a single statement from the Taliban in Afghanistan. So that big statement that I'm going to make here is that I fear Mullah Haibatullah Akhund is dead. Because till now, he should have come out with some kind of principles as per which government will be formed, or he would have come in to interfere and to bridge the gap between the two groups. So if that is the case, I think the way Mullah Abdul Ghani brother is given protocol in Kabul, the way he has been given and accorded respect reflects that probably he is the top man at the moment, and they are going to make some statements about Mullah Akhund in the forthcoming period. After stating this all, I believe that in future they are going to accommodate. I believe this is the high time that Taliban, who are going to have very good relations with the neighboring countries, because they have learned not only from Dr. Ashraf Ghani, but from the past as well. See what happened. On 15th August, Taliban entered in Kabul. On 16th August, right outside Afghanistan, Torkham border, 800 trucks were parked inside Pakistan. Very next day, within hours, they opened the gates and they allowed all the 800 trucks entering inside Afghanistan. And they said that not even a single truck will stand now parked outside Afghanistan if they are there too. So what I'm saying is that the Taliban have learned another very important thing during this war and during this all process. Relations are with the world. It is economic relations that take place with the neighboring countries. That's it. Neighboring countries have only economic relations, no other type of relations at all. So that is the reason that they have opened and they are developing economic relations with all neighboring countries, which means from the Iranian side, from the Central Asian republics, they are more than conducive. They are more than very softer in terms as far as economic ties with the neighboring countries are concerned. In this background, I believe that this is the high time that we may also see that Taliban are also in negotiations with the United States. I mean, imagine the country that they had fought for. Yes, and the next 2 minutes will be my last 2 minutes. Let me say this very bluntly, that our international relations theories, our education regarding Afghanistan, everything was dharan takhta, the way things took place on 15th of August. And the reason was that we were kept in the dark. I mean, 300,000 forces, Afghan forces, out of which we came to know that 120,000 forces were not there at all on the ground. I mean, they were ghost soldiers. उनकी तनख्वाहें जा रही हैं, उनकी यूनिफॉर्म्स के खर्चे जा रहे हैं, उनके ऊपर पैसा लग रहा है, लेकिन Pata chala ke, I mean, they were not there at all. So we came to know that Afghanistan was, in fact, it was a hub of corruption by the Afghan regime, which means Karzai as well as Dr. Ashraf Ghani, as well as corruption by American forces. Just imagine, I'm finishing, and the last two things. In 2007, $14 billion were transferred through banking from Afghanistan to Dubai banks. Tell me what Afghanistan is earning inside. What the amazing thing has been produced by Afghanistan, that $14 billion is there in Dubai banks. In 2008, once again, same statistical data, and it was increasing with the passage of time, which means that Americans were filling the pockets of few Afghans, not that they were developing Afghanistan for that matter. And so was the case with the Americans, because they were coming over here with huge contracts. Half of the money was paid to the Afghan elite class, and who were transferring all that money, and half of it was there in their own pockets, and they were taking that away with themselves. So in the circumstances, we see that there was a huge treasure that was digged out in Arg, Arg, which is called the Presidential Palace. So Dr. Ashraf Ghani was having a huge treasure of dollars in the Arg, and that has been declassified as well very recently. So in terms of the process, I believe that in Afghanistan, Dr. Ashraf Ghani himself was responsible for the fall of Kabul, for the fall of Afghanistan. We believe that had there been really a wonderful, realistically speaking, an Afghan army, it would have really defended against untrained people like Taliban, but they could not, because Taliban's training and their experience was much more than the Afghan army that was very poorly trained. With this, I sign out, but any question, and I'm there to answer them.
Thank you so much, Professor Soherwordi. You're so right that many of our international relations theoretical frameworks were just collapse right in front of our eyes. Thank you so much for your insight on Taliban, of course, and Afghanistan. It's very important for us to learn. And for those students who are looking at this, these developments and how to making sense of the entire situation.